Welcome to the Canadian Business Quarterly podcast, where we speak with Canada's most influential industry leaders on the business and economic development issues taking place across the country. You can stay up to date with all of our content, including our publications, newsletters, and podcasts by visiting www.thecbq.ca and clicking on subscribe.
Today's guest is Richard Missens, CEO of the Pasqua First Nation Group of Companies, or better known by their acronym of the PFN Group of Companies. Richard, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So give us the background on the PFN Group of Companies.
Okay, it's a company that's 100% owned by the Pasqua First Nation here in Saskatchewan. It was established by the Chief and Council in 2012. And it was set up just as a joint venture company to partner with industry. But in 2018, the council decided they wanted to carry the company on to do a little bit more. And it developed the PFN Group of Companies Limited Partnership. And then PFN Group of Companies, Inc. became the general partner. And the idea was that the company would now be the major thrust in the nation's economic development strategy.
And so how long have you been with the organization then?
I guess in line with what the council wanted to do, the company didn't have any staff at that time. It was just an LP and a general partner with no staff. So Chief Began and the council had approached me and asked me if I would come and help them out and be the president and CEO. I joined the company in May of 2019. Previous to that, I was a faculty member with the School of Business at the First Nations University of Canada. And I've been there for 27 years. I should point out that I am a Pasqua band member and actually live on the reserve. So when the Chief and Council come and asked me to be a big part of this new company, I was honored. And so I joined the team in May of 2019. Some of the first initiatives we wanted to do, and speaking with the council, was first of all, build some capacity. So we now have a business development manager, and we've now employed a professional agrologist on staff to help us with some of the farm planning that we have in mind. And we got to work identifying opportunities for the company, ways of creating employment and training for our First Nations members, and developing a strategic plan as we got forward. And in early 2020, we developed its own board of governors, and we were off and running.
Okay, great. Now, PFN Group of Companies, it's the overarching entity, but there's a number of different brands and businesses within it. Do you want to take us through some of what those are?
Yeah, right now we've got four subsidiary businesses or activities that we manage under the company's portfolio. Our biggest company is Pro Metal Industries. It's located in Regina. It's one of Western Canada's premier precision custom manufacturing, assembly, metal fabrication, welding. They specialize in metalwork and custom fabricating and those kinds of things. And the company's done really well since we've owned it. We bought it in 2015. But during the pandemic, we were able to pivot the company, and we grew our sales from 2 million to over 10 million in 2019, partly because we realized that some of the laser cutting and water jet tools we had could cut through 6 inches of steel just as easy as it could cut through a 1/4 inch of plexiglass. And so we started making barriers, protective barriers for schools and offices. We started manufacturing portable sinks and hand washing stations. We designed a division of the company called Sage Pro Protect, which delivered personal protective equipment and products to organizations and for other First Nations. So in a time of pandemic, we were able to turn things around a bit and, I don't want to say it in a bad way, take advantage of, but by helping others, we were able to grow our company and providing services to other First Nations in particular. I know the Department of Affairs played a big role in helping to get PPL, and we were seen as a preferred service provider in helping Indigenous Services Canada meet some of the mandates. So we're pretty proud of Pro Metal. in that sense. The other business we inherited, actually, it's been running on the reserve for 20 years, is a small convenience and gas station that provides fuel, tobacco, convenience, grocery products to the local households, families here on the reserve. And so when the LP was created, Chief and Council moved this business under the control of PFN Group of Companies. So it does really good. It's cash positive. Been doing that for 20 years. It has a full-time staff of about 8 people and a part-time staff of about 7. And it does really good. And it employs people and creates revenues and, most of all, providing what I think is essential products and services here in the nation. Another company we developed in 2018 was the Pasqua First Nation Land Holdings Limited. And what this company does, it just buys lands and buildings. It becomes kind of the landlord for some of the other businesses that we have. And right now, the company currently manages approximately $8 million of commercial agricultural land. So, for example, we've got roughly 1,300 arable acres of land in 10 quarters right next to our reserve community. And that's owned by this company. And we currently lease it out, so we get some lease revenues from that. The company also owns commercial land in the town of Fort Qu-Appelle, which is situated about 20 minutes next to us here. And that's vacant land that was given to the company, and PFN Group of Companies is now looking at economic opportunities and how we can best use the land. The last entity we have is a very new one and a very young one. It's actually run out of our public works. It's our PFN tire shop, and that's located right on the reserve. And it provides tires and tire servicing to the residents and businesses on the reserve. So it's a small company. We borrow our capacity from our public works department, but that one's in the plans to create an independent, standalone tire garage and brake service for the community shortly. So those are the 4 main entities we have in our company right now.
My notes also say that you've got equity in a few other businesses. Did you want to discuss those as well?
Yes, we do have some equity, and it was part of our investment strategy. One is to actually own businesses and operate them, and I described some of them. But it's also to invest in industry and other businesses that we think are doing really well, and have products and services and opportunities that align with PFN Group of Companies' needs and our wants and our demands. One of those companies is Atlantis Research Labs, and they're located in Medicine Hat. This is an R&D company, and they have one product in particular called PureJet. It's trademarked. And what PureJet is, it's a proprietary technology they developed. And what it does, it was targeted at oil and gas industry. And in 2018 to 2019, the governments of Alberta and Saskatchewan changes regulation with the oil and gas industry around flaring of gas. These are these huge stacks where there's a fire on top where they're actually trying to burn this gas. Well, flaring doesn't do a good enough job in trying to dismantle this waste gas. And so what Atlantis Research Labs did was develop this PureJet technology, which tested in the field was 99.99% effective in dismantling and treating this waste gas, and eliminated all of the harmful emissions that were coming from that. So we were pretty excited about that. As you may know, we are in Saskatchewan, and Saskatchewan and Alberta are one of our biggest industries is oil and gas. But when our elders talk to us about what we do in business, we have to be careful about how we work with things that are harmful to Mother Earth. So it wouldn't be good for us to invest in oil and gas exploration and development, but it's perfect for us to get involved in helping to clean up what the industry has and some of the byproducts. So we're pretty happy with that. The company is already launching it. So, and this product is now out into industry. And so we're pretty happy and proud to be a part of Atlantis Research Labs. Another company we own 50% of is the NP Aerospace. Now, NP Aerospace is primarily located in UK Coventry. That's where the main manufacturing plant is. But we also have a smaller plant in London, Ontario, in Eastern Canada. And basically what the company does, it's a manufacturer of high-performance armor systems. So, for example, we make ballistic protective devices like shields, vests for military, police services. We also make ballistic helmets. In 2018, we won the contract to manufacture 33,000 helmets for the Canadian Army. So yeah, so we're pretty proud of that. And we bought into the company because we wanted to enter into the global military and defense industry. And so we're still growing. We think that's a great part to be. We've had a lot of our First Nations elders and people who had served. So we have First Nations veterans. And so we thought contributing to protection of soldiers and military was a good way to give back. The last company we invested in is Atlas Biotechnologies, also known as Atlas Growers. And they're a company that provides cultivation and production of medical cannabis. They're located just out of Edmonton, Alberta. And what we really liked about this company was the medical side. I know when the cannabis industry in Canada became legalized and it was a big boom, everybody was scrambling to build capacity in providing cannabis products. We went to our elders, we went to our community and our families, and we asked them, is this an opportunity we want to take? We went to our elders, our community, and our families, and we asked them, is this an opportunity that we would like to be involved in as a nation? We got a resounding no. And the concern was that cannabis, 20 years ago was an illegal substance. And because it was considered a drug, we are already having challenges with our own youth in our communities and struggling with substance abuse issues and challenges. They didn't want to see us getting involved in the production of cannabis.
Yeah, fair enough.
For use as a THC. But one of the things we did find out is that cannabis is made up of two main components: THC and CBD. THC is the recreational side of it, and the CBD is the medical side of it. And that's where we were very intrigued with what Atlas Biotechnologies was doing. They positioned themselves as a medical cannabis company. And what they've done is they developed a lab. They started identifying different derivatives of CBD. And then they signed agreements with various medical schools around the world. For example, they signed agreements with the School of Medicine at the University of Alberta. They have also signed agreements with the Bristol University in the United Kingdom and the medical school at Harvard. So Harvard Medical School, they signed agreements with them. So basically what they do is they provide high value CBD, cannabis CBD oil, derivatives, and flower for research. As an example, the Harvard Medical School is doing research on epilepsy and Parkinson's, neurological diseases, and trying to find if these CBD derivatives can be useful in treatments. So we were very intrigued by that. That was a totally different side of the coin when it came to the cannabis industry. And so we went back to our council and our band members. That was fine to be a part of that. The nice opportunity that fell out of that relationship is we are now set to launch early this fall a new Indigenous brand of health and wellness topicals and creams. And our Indigenous brand is called Minu Haki. And in our Saulteaux language, that means good earth. So shortly, you should see our Good Earth line of products. We also are using traditional medicines from the land and combining them with the CBD to create a very unique line of medical health products that will be soon out there for customers.
And so, what's the company's vision as you consider other possible partnerships with various industries moving forward?
That's a great question. One of the things we actually inherited when I came into the company in 2019 is that we did have some joint ventures and some memorandums of understanding with other companies out there. As I mentioned earlier, the company was started as a joint venture company. So when Enbridge Line 3 replacement was coming through Western Canada, potash exploration development was happening, oil and gas exploration was happening. Companies were looking for Indigenous partners to partner with. And so we looked at some of these partnerships and said, you know what? This has got a lot of benefit, not just to the nation, but the PFN Group of Companies having these kinds of alliances. And we continued on that path when I came on in 2019. We now have 11 partnerships with various companies in various industries. For example, we have engineering, logistics, construction, architectural companies, pipeline fabrications, line servicing, hydrovac, etc. And so what we wanted to do is develop a sort of a comprehensive group of companies that we called our alliance. And so now when we're looking at providing services, not just to our nation, but other nations, to governments, to large companies to bid on projects, we can reach back into the alliance and have all of the services and the products that we would require that we could bid on some of these contracts. And so we developed a roundtable and alliance. And in the roundtable, we sit with our 11 partners. And PFN Group of Companies is the common denominator in this. And we talk strategically about how we as an alliance of companies can continue to grow and to provide products and services out there. And so we do that on a quarterly basis. And so it's something different. A lot of the companies we partnered with said, well, we just kind of signed the JVs, went off, got some work, and so on. But PFN Group of Companies, you guys did something a little different in bringing us together and saying, how can we, in our United Alliance, create opportunities for all of us differently than had been done in the past? Now, for us, that was great because in bringing the leadership to the alliance, we were able to now not negotiate, but position ourselves that we can provide labor. You can help us with some of the training. We can also do some of the lobbying with government. We can share in some of the profits. We have some experience in this as an Indigenous company, but we can also learn from your experience. So we saw a lot of win-win in this. And for our companies, of course, bringing the alliance together and helping to, where we would take a lead on some of these bidding and these project negotiations and lobbying, we think we can bring more work to them in that respect. So something a little different where we're working on. We just started this year and we're pretty excited about the future of that one.
Okay. You're talking future. So where are the opportunities really? Where is this organization headed?
Well, we are a community-driven company. As such, I go back to council. I go back to my board, of course, and I have to go back to our band members. And I go back to the elders. Our elders council meets regularly, and I've made a commitment to share what we're doing and take the direction and guidance. And one of the things that we have as an untapped resource is the land that we have. We are a treaty land entitlement band, which means that under the Treaty Land Entitlement Agreement, in the early 1900s, the government of Canada had appropriated land from the nation that they should not have. And in settling that dispute, the government said, okay, we can't give you back your land, but we'll give you some money and you can buy back what they call the shortfall acres that were misappropriated and taken from you. So we have the ability to buy upwards of 30,000 acres of land and turn it into reserve. Right now, we have a little over 11,500 acres of arable farmland, but that land is currently all rented out or leased to non-resident farmers. So it's not Pasqua First Nation band members benefiting from it. We're just leasing it out and getting some small economic rents from it. So what the elders in the community says, why don't we farm our own land? And so our next company I'd like to see is a corporate farm, Pasqua Farms Limited, that's 100% owned by PFN Group of Companies, and where we start building the capacity and training our band members to run these millions of dollars of equipment and get into agriculture. We want to start with grain and oilseed, but eventually, we're looking at things like bison, poultry, and dairy production on the lands that we have. And
so, at PFN, it's an Indigenous owned and operated business. How do these values, impact on your goals for running an enterprise?
Wow, that's a great question. And they do. And I don't realize, I'm sitting in the president, CEO chair, thinking about, the business acumen, the business training, and the business world that I engage with on a day-to-day basis. But when I meet with our elders, they have to be humble. And they remind me about who we are and the things that they teach and what the things that guide us. And so they remind me that we have a spiritual connection to the land. We always have as First Nations people. And the Creator gave us responsibilities as stewards of the land. And we live in harmony with the land. We are a part of this ecosystem. And we're taught that everything is connected. And when we do something, it trickles out into every part of the ecosystem. And it impacts the plants, the animals, the air, and the water. So they remind us that we have to be very careful and very deliberate. So the way in which we take care of the land becomes paramount for us. So when we're looking at things like agriculture, today the industry is dominated by heavy use of chemicals. They're draining wetlands, taking down trees, all in trying to get from 40 bushels an acre to 60 bushels an acre. But we're reminded that you can't squeeze that much out of the land. Mother Earth can only give so much. You've got to be able to give back and take care of her. So in a farming practice, we would have to be, as I said, very careful and deliberate. We'd have to look at our soil health and make sure that's maintained. We have to look after the water. We protect our watersheds. And we would protect the forests, and plant bushes and trees and forested areas for the animals. And of course, we got to be able to minimize climate pollutions that we have. And the goal is we want to be able to sustainably farm the land so it's there for our children that haven't even been born yet. So that's something our elders teach us to look far, far ahead. We're just borrowing the land. We're just using the land, but it doesn't belong to us. So when we design a corporate agricultural entity, these things have to be paramount in the strategy of the company. So we're going to approach farming, I think, a lot different than what the traditional practices out there currently.
Now, before we wrap up, Richard, is there anything else that you haven't had a chance to address or would like to say to anyone listening today?
Well, PFN Group of Companies, and I know with a lot of other First Nations, I've worked with, and I've had an experience of knowing economic development is an important part of the development strategy within First Nations governments. But it's not the means to the ends. It's not what we're trying to do is all of the cash flow and the profits and the riches that come with it. What we see economic development is, it is getting to a place where we can begin to address some of the social pathologies we deal with as First Nations people. We've been isolated for the most part on these Indian reserves for over 100 years. We were set aside when Canada was being developed. And as a result, when it comes to businesses, we're 25 years behind the rest of the world. But with good partners and investment into First Nations businesses, it's not going to take us 25 years to catch up. I think we could be great partners. We could be great contributors to local economies, provincial economies, national economies, and we become more self-sustaining and self-dependent on ourselves and less dependent on Canada and not being wards of the state. So this becomes an important part of our self-determination. But economic development, as I said, isn't the end all. We want to be able to provide opportunities for our families, especially our young families, to look after themselves, to look after their children, to create opportunities, create jobs. And one of the ways we see that happening is by asking the rest of Canada, corporate Canada, to invest in us, to help create, to make better partners from us. You will directly benefit through better supplier productivity, better quality products, increased reliability, more loyal partnerships. One of our corporate values at PFN Group of Companies is around relationship building, to have the integrity, the honesty, and the respect in working with people. When you make friends with First Nations people, it's for life, and that value carries into the corporations. So I guess my message is, when First Nations reach out to you, or you have the opportunity to reach out to First Nations, we look at partnership building as a very important part of strategic development in company relationship. And just to kind of end my comment, if you look back at the treaties and how First Nations people helped the development of Canada, we sat and built rapport around the treaties. And when the newcomers came and the fur trade was on, the first thing that happened was rapport building and pipe ceremonies and feast ceremonies, building those relationships, because we knew we're all going to live together. So First Nations right now are in that process of catching up from being 25 years behind. So I really thankful to all of the companies that have reached out to us and that we work with in helping us to meet our economic goals. I'm thankful for the learning and the mentoring that I've received so far. So I encourage corporate Canada to be a part of this emerging industry and First Nations business.
Excellent. Well, Richard, thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
This has been a production of the Canadian Business Quarterly, a division of Romulus Rising Proprietary Limited. All rights reserved. You can stay up to date with the Canadian Business Quarterly, including our publications, newsletters, and podcasts by visiting www.thecbq.ca and clicking on subscribe.